Welcome to my channel, or welcome back to my channel. My name is Becca and I bring you along my journey of creating a life that I love. And I honestly think that that's what a lot of us are here to do, is to live lives that we want to wake up to every day and just be happy. When I first set out with the goal of creating a life that I love, I knew that I needed to focus on something that was really stressing me out, and that is my finances, chiefly the credit card debt that I was in at the time. I have since paid off that credit card debt, and today I wanted to share with you some of the helpful tips and things that I picked up along the way of my journey paying off credit card debt. But before we dive into that, I wanted to give a little disclaimer that I am just sharing my life experience for fun. I believe that money is simply a tool to help you create a life that you love, and therefore there is no right way to use it. Personal finance is truly personal, and I hope that by sharing my journey, I can inspire you to check in with your money and make sure that you are using it to create a life that you truly do love. In my last video, I did mention that I had been in and out of credit card debt 3 different times in my life, and I wanted to expand upon that a little further. Clearly, I am no stranger to a debt payoff journey. The first time I racked up credit card debt was when I got my first big girl job right out of college, and I had no financial systems or anything set into place. I was spending all of the money that I made and then some, clearly, because I was living a lifestyle that I just could not maintain. I do have good memories from that time in my life because I was taking trips and making those memories, but I also spent a lot of money on things that I couldn't even tell you what they were, and I ended up spending a lot more money than the actual cost of those items because of the amount of interest that I paid to carry that credit card balance. When the pandemic hit, it was a very dark and uncertain time. However, for me, it was also a time where I was able to reflect and take a step back because everything was shut down and nobody was spending money, people weren't traveling. For me, in hindsight, it gave me the chance to pause my life and look into my finances, and it was not good. I think at that point, if I recall, I'd have to go back and see the exact balances, but it was greater than $8,000 of credit card debt between 2 different credit cards. And I had no job because it was the pandemic. I was able to work Instacart, and grocery delivery was really big at that time. So I was quite busy making good side hustle income from Instacart. I also did Uber Eats, and that first amount of debt I paid off through side hustles. I was able to stay out of credit card debt for a little bit, but then life got busy again. And at that point, again, I did not have financial systems set into place. So I crept slowly back into credit card debt. Not as much as I had the first time. However, it was enough to warrant having to kind of put my life on pause again and go through somewhat of a payoff. Again, I turned to the side hustles, increasing my income and cutting expenses to pay off that debt. But clearly the second time I didn't learn either, because then I went into credit card debt for a 3rd time. I am officially credit card debt free as of the beginning of this year, and I plan on keeping it that way because I now have systems set into place to keep me out of that. And I've done a lot of mental work to be in the place that I am now, and it just feels very different this time. I've clearly made some not so smart decisions in my life and have paid the consequences for that. And having gone through credit card debt payoff journeys 3 different times in my life, I do feel like I'm qualified to share that experience and hopefully share some of the things that I've learned so that you can learn from my mistakes. And if you already are in credit card debt, I just want you to know that it's okay. And for me, a big part of it was the avoidance, and that made it worse. So actually, the first step and the first thing that I want to share with you is to determine your why. And I think that the reason why I went through this 3 times before I finally feel like I figured it out is that I didn't have a strong enough why. But determining your why, understanding what kind of life you want to live, the life that you want to create for yourself, seeing your future, seeing what you want to do, having a really strong why of staying out of credit card debt or paying off your credit card debt is so important. And that is like my number one tip. Step number 2 is to check all of your accounts, every single one. As someone who was really good at ignoring my accounts and ignoring the debt that was piling up in the background, it is vital that you go in and at least check and see where you are. Being brutally honest with yourself is very hard, and I shed many tears throughout this process because a lot of it is very personal and it's very tied to your mental health, and you have to face a lot of feelings of insecurity, disappointment, frustration at yourself or your situation. And for me, calculating out and checking my accounts and calculating my net worth statement was really like that pivotal, eye-opening moment. And so I can't recommend enough to start with creating a net worth statement for yourself, because that really gives you a good picture of what your finances look like. So basically, what a net worth statement is just a list of your assets minus your liabilities, and that gives you your net worth value. Knowing where you're at now will help you figure out how to get where you need to go next. And that brings me to number 3, which is get organized. Now that you know where you're at, you can create a plan, and that's where making a budget comes into play. It is going to be so important that you have a plan for your money, because otherwise nothing's gonna change unless you change something and tell your money where to go so that you can pay off this debt. Having a budget is so important, and I plan to always have a budget, or at least estimate some of my future expenses. That way I can be prepared, because if you don't tell your money where to go, it's so much easier to just spend it on anything and everything that you want that comes your way, instead of making sure that you're actually putting it toward what you want to create for yourself and the life that you want to create for yourself. Making a budget is honestly very simple. You just need to take all of your expected income sources, whether that be from a paycheck or if you are self-employed. You estimate the amount of money that you will be bringing in that you will have to spend that month. And then you also need to list out all of your expenses. So essential expenses such as living expenses, rent, mortgage, utilities, bills, subscriptions, anything like that needs to be listed out. And then you also have your discretionary spend as well. So these are other things like personal spending items, entertainment, categories that aren't necessarily essential expenses. And once you list out everything that's your essential expense, you can figure out how to allocate the remainder toward paying off your debt. For me, making a budget was extremely eye-opening, because I realized just how much of my money was going to unnecessary purchases and how much of my money was going to things that didn't even really bring me value, that I didn't genuinely want to spend money on. And defining the kind of life I want to live and defining what a life that I love means to me has helped me make sure that the money that I do allocate is going toward that goal, and that I'm truly spending on things that bring me joy. Number 4 kind of ties in with number 3, and it is to track every single expense. So it's one thing to create a budget, but it's another thing to actually stick to the budget. And what helped me was tracking every single expense. Every single time I swiped my card or purchased something or got billed for something, I was tracking it every single time. This is so important to stay accountable to the budget that you set. That way you're actually making sure that you're following it and that the plan is going to plan. Something that really helps me is that I create my budget and spend tracker on Google Sheets, and they actually have an app on your phone that you can download. And I was able to consistently, and I still do to this day, update every time I make a purchase. I track it in my spend tracker. That way I know and I stay on top of where I'm spending. That way I fit my goals and I know that what I am spending, I know I'm gonna have to track it, so it helps me make conscious consumption choices, knowing that I will have to hold myself accountable for them. Allow me to get a little vulnerable here. I realized that I was spending money on things that I could not afford. And in tracking every single expense, I really was confronted with the reality that I cannot afford the life that I had been living, and that if I wanted something to change, I had to change. And so part of my debt payoff this final time, I started to cut certain expenses that I had become accustomed to, and that was quite difficult. However, I'm still happy with the decisions that I made to cut those certain expenses. For example, I stopped getting my nails done. And this was huge for me because I had been getting very expensive dip manicures every month that were upwards of $100 every month. My nails were very weak underneath all of that product. And so it was a commitment to a journey of growing out my natural nails to get them strong again to a point where they can exist without dip on them. In addition, you can probably tell, but I am also in the process of growing out my natural hair color. And for me, the hair and nails kind of going on this journey to getting back to like my natural roots, it has been multi-purpose. So I've saved money. I feel a bit healthier and that I've been taking supplements and things to make my hair grow and have my nails be strong, but I just feel healthier, more natural, and honestly, I feel like I'm loving this brown, so I will be very excited to see what it looks like when my hair is fully grown out. But just committing to cutting expenses where I can to make it fit the budget, knowing that it is temporary. I told myself if I really hate the short nails and if I really hate my natural hair, that I can always rearrange the budget to allocate for things like that. However, this has been kind of a whole self-discovery journey, and that this is why I say that personal finance is so personal, because it ties into like your core values and your self-esteem and who you are and how you feel. I can honestly say that I'm very proud of myself for sticking to the natural nail journey as well as the natural hair journey. All of this to say, I basically cut out every single discretionary expense from my budget for a short time, knowing that I was going to pay off this debt. I was very committed to paying off the debt. And it was really hard to go cold turkey and just cut off like all discretionary spending. For me, that is what worked. And I was so highly motivated to get rid of this credit card debt for good that I was able to just go cold turkey and commit for like that short period of time. and then have slowly been adding things back in where I can and where I do truly want to. Because I think for me, it's when you become accustomed to a certain level of living, it's really hard to cut back. But now that I've cut back, I can actually figure out how I want to spend my money, and the things that I spend money on, I can know for certain that they are helping me to create a life that I truly love. Tip number 5 is to increase your income as much as possible. During this debt payoff, I was ruthless about getting rid of things that no longer served me. That included clothes, Minnie Mouse ears, things that I purchased at theme parks or on trips, or different shoes that I haven't worn in forever. There were some things that I still had brand new that I just didn't use, and things that I actually remember going into debt to buy, that just once I was committed to being debt free, it no longer brought me joy, and it actually was like stressing me out to have a lot of these things. Something that can really help is just being super ruthless and being very picky and specific about kind of the Marie Kondo of it all. Does this actually spark joy? If not, no, I'm selling it. And just having ways to bring in extra money outside of your normal paycheck or your normal income is so helpful. Uber Eats, Instacart, Wag, walking people's dogs. There are so many other ways and side hustles to partake in that can help increase your income, if even only for a short period of time. You can always go get like a second job or a weekend job if you have a 9-to-5. There are just so many ways to help increase that income. And if you know that it is for a short amount of time and you're motivated, I think having the extra income is super helpful, and it will help speed up the process of your debt payoff. Tip number 6 is to immerse yourself. I found it so helpful to surround myself with other people who were also on debt payoff journeys at this time. It was so great to see other people doing the same things that I was. It helped keep me motivated, it helped keep me accountable, and it kind of normalized it for me as well, because I think a debt payoff journey can feel really isolating, especially if you're saying no to plans or you're not doing things that you normally do that would bring you joy. It can be a very difficult process, and that's partly why I even wanted to film this video, is just to share and add another voice to help normalize this and make you feel less alone. I read a handful of books throughout this debt payoff journey of mine. I also listened to lots of podcasts, YouTube videos, and I really do think that immersing yourself and surrounding yourself and hearing more about personal finance gets you in that headspace and makes it a lot easier to stay locked in on the debt-free journey. I even created a Pinterest board of my net worth growing debt-free journey and pinned different fun pictures of like verbiage and affirmations and just like pictures of money, which sounds silly, I guess, saying it out loud, but I am such a visual person. I love Pinterest, and I found that putting together a vision board and seeing things come to fruition in that way visually was really helpful and motivating to me. Anytime that I felt like I was wavering or just needed extra motivation, I would go to that Pinterest board and just feel reinvigorated and remember the why of why I'm doing this, why I'm putting myself through this. I also would recommend documenting your journey, whether that be also vlogging, sharing it online, or through journaling. So journaling for me was something that was so helpful. This was literally just an old journal that I had was given from work, I think. I made a little graphic and just kind of made it fun. If you give up, you know what happens, but if you keep going, that's unknown. And so this has just become like my personal, like my journal, my diary of all my wins. The days that are really difficult, I also would turn to my journal and write things down because it helps you process those emotions. And additionally, I would take notes on podcasts that I would listen to and books that I would read. And writing things down, I think it takes me back to like my childhood and in school. Something about writing something down helps commit it to memory more and makes it feel more real. And so using this journal as like an outlet for really immersing myself and processing my thoughts and helping guide me along this journey, because personal finance is so personal, it is so mental, and there's a lot of mental work that goes into it. Also, on the mental health side of it, something that really helped me was clearing out my social media feed and kind of making sure that I'm only following people who genuinely inspire me. And there are just so many people on social media are trying to sell you something, and I think that's great, and I love social media. However, I want to share with you, like, it's totally normal and it's okay if you need to take a step back from social media, if you are feeling pressured to overspend, or if you are constantly feeling like you are inadequate because of what you're seeing online. It is okay to take a step back. It's okay to unfollow. It's okay to mute if you need to. That's why those tools are there. And I think it's so important for you to protect your mental health. And it was really important for me during this time to kind of curate and adjust my feed so that I saw things that were helping promote me toward making good choices and where I personally am at in my life. And it's nothing about social media as a whole or, you know, specific people, anything like that. It has everything to do with me and how I'm coming to social media. And it's okay to need to like take a step back and take time off. There were multiple times during this journey where I actually completely removed the download of both Instagram and TikTok because I just was so overwhelmed and just needed that step back. Tip number 7 is to stick to the plan and see it through. And what really helped me for this was the accountability of tracking my net worth monthly and seeing the progress that I was making toward my goals, seeing the debt category get smaller and smaller, while also seeing my assets grow larger and larger was extremely motivating to stick to the plan and the budget, because you can actually see the fruits of your labor and you can see all of the hard work paying off. And having that as like a monthly update, you could even do a weekly check-in. For a while I was doing Finance Fridays for myself, where every single Friday I was logging in, making sure everything was updated, reviewing and seeing my progress of where I landed that week. But for me now, what feels sustainable and what feels good is doing the monthly net worth check-in. Something that I learned is that I had to rewire my brain to find joy in the debt payoff progress versus finding joy in spending money and buying things. And it is a little bit of a mental shift, but once I got myself in that place and I was seeing the progress and knowing that I was getting to where I wanted to go, it is so motivating and it really helped me stick to the plan. I didn't have this one written down, but one last tip that I wanted to add that's kind of like the unhinged edition is that if you really want to find some motivation, go back through all your statements and calculate out how much money you've paid in interest on your credit card debt. I did that And for just one of my cards, the lesser of the two balances, I paid $1,300, over $1,300 in just in interest. That was just to have what I had. I was paying and had paid a total of $1,300. So I'm imagining that my overall interest paid on credit cards specifically is upwards of $3,000 is my estimate. I'd have to go in and exactly calculate out the other card. However, knowing what I could have done with that money, while it's deeply upsetting, it's also very motivating to continue to stay out of credit card debt. Knowing what I could have done and what I would do for that money back, oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. That one's kind of an unhinged tip, but it could be helpful to you. I'm just imagining myself just like throwing away $3,000. That $3,000 is like a nice trip or a cruise, a Disney cruise. I hope that you may have found some of these tips to be useful. It felt very vulnerable to open up about my experience with credit card debt. However, I made a promise to myself that I wanted to share and give back because I found these types of videos so comforting and so motivating and so helpful when I was paying off my debt that I really just want to give that back. I really want to inspire you to prove that it is totally possible to pay off your credit card debt and to get your life back together. And this, for me, was part of my process of creating a life I love, and that was kicking credit card debt to the curb. Now that I'm debt-free, I have shifted my goals to saving and investing, and I look forward to sharing more of that journey in future videos. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to give it a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to stay updated on my future videos all about finance, fitness, and just creating a life that I love. Keep showing up for yourself, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.